With the sound of the gong, these proceedings can commence. Good morning, everybody. My name is Bill McCormick. I am a trustee, and I'm on the Music and Worship Committee. They hoodwinked me into being a service leader today. I want to welcome everybody here, particularly any visitors. Do we have visitors today? No? Oh, okay. Would you like to introduce yourself, or if you wish, somebody will bring a microphone. Somebody being our great usher, John Betcher. We want to remind everyone. Well, here we go.
My name is Beth Nitch, and I live in the Estero area, and this is my first time here in many years.
Oh, well, I'm so glad you visited today. We're doing summer services, and part of the charm of this place is the eclectic nature of our summer services. You never know what will be offered. So welcome. Afterwards, we have refreshments and food, and so please stay. And, another visitor.
Yes, hi, I'm Lori Melhart, and this is my dad, Gary. My dad lives here in Naples, and me and my two sons are visiting. We're members of the DuPage Unitarian Universalist Church in Naperville, Illinois.
Great. Well, thanks so much. Glad you're here. Anyone else? Okay. Well, stay afterward. The UU congregation of Greater Naples is an inclusive community built upon religious pluralism. Our religion is reflected in our mission statement, which is in your order of service. I'll read it. We are a welcoming congregation, freely seeking intellectual and spiritual growth. We strive to create a larger community of peace, justice, and love. Now, sometimes my eyesight isn't so good, so if I mess up on the order of service, don't hesitate to tell me that I've missed something. So now, I have a couple of announcements here. One is that we are streaming this thing to the internet, and my hope is, as a member of the Caring Committee, eventually all of those folks that can't get here will be able to tune us in on Sunday mornings. So we're starting it this summer, and it's running, so we have to behave ourselves as well, because it could go viral. Today we're fortunate to have John Lynch return to the pulpit. The topic of his sermon today is forgiveness. This is an element of human nature which is much absent in world affairs and in domestic affairs. And it will be a welcome message here. It has great implication for world peace. If you just think about all the sides warring with each other at the current time, I think about the Amish people whose children were murdered, and the first thing the families of the Amish people, those children did, they went to visit the family of the murderer and tried to and forgave them. So it's kind of a great example, and I appreciate it. In the Old Testament, Hebrew prophet Micah implored the Israelites to love mercy, knowing well that forgiveness arises out of mercy. Forgiveness, however, goes further than mercy because it involves a restoring of a fractured relationship. Mark Twain characterized forgiveness as the fragrance that the violet sheds on the heel that has crushed it. So, this is a time for our fellowship greeting, so we could say hello to each other, especially people with whom you are not acquainted, and you can commence that now, and when you hear the sound of the gong, You can, yes, excuse me, you can expeditiously return to your seats. So there you go. Say hello to your neighbors. Good morning, John. Good morning, Bill. Good to see you. Is that it? Oh, Maria's going to help me light this. I don't know how you do it, though. Today we are very fortunate to have Alexandra Sasha Carlson play on the Falzioli. This is a special occasion. And she came all the way from St. Petersburg, Russia. And the music came all the way from Germany, Mendelssohn. I don't know if he wrote this when he was a kid, but he was a genius who discovered Bach, actually. So, beautiful piece called Duetto. That's a tough act to follow, Sasha, I must say. I'm interjecting here a couple of unauthorized announcements. One of which is I want to thank everybody who volunteered to be a buddy to augment the work of the Caring Committee. And as it turned out, you don't have to be on the committee, but you can contact people who are homebound or whatever, and that's worked pretty well. So thank you, whoever is involved in that, and we can always use more buddies. The second unauthorized announcement request is that everybody enjoys our kitchen work, the fruits of it, and we always need more help. And I understand there's a convenient sign-up sheet if you want to be able to help in the kitchen 1 or 2 Sundays a month. It would be a great benefit. I'm sure you don't have to do it every Sunday, but you could put your name on there for Sundays where you could help, and it would be appreciated. The other thing, this is Split the Plate Sunday, and I'll get to that when we do the offertory, but it's for parents and friends of lesbian, gay, and bisexual people. So, now today, I've selected for the opening word something attributed to Abraham Lincoln. He's the long-suffering 16th President of the United States. Lincoln endured the somewhat merciless criticism from so many political enemies, even in the face of national existential challenges against which he successfully steered the ship of state. In fact, it sounds like he went through just what George W. Bush and Obama go through all the time. They're always to blame. But Lincoln said, criticism is part of the price paid for leaping past mediocrity. He eventually came to believe that the best way to deal with his many critics was to learn to forgive. And this is what he wrote. For too long, every ounce of forgiveness I owned was locked away, hidden from view, waiting for me to bestow its precious presence upon some worthy person. Alas, I found most people to be singularly unworthy of my valuable forgiveness. And since they never asked for it, I kept it all to myself. Now the forgiveness that I hoarded has sprouted inside my heart like a crippled seed yielding bitter fruit. At this moment, my life has taken a new hope and assurance. By the simple act of granting forgiveness, I release the demons of the past about which I can do nothing. I create in myself a new heart, a new beginning. I will greet this day with a forgiving spirit. I will forgive those who criticize me unjustly. Knowing that slavery in any form is wrong, I also know that the person who lives a life according to the opinion of others is a slave. I am not a slave. I have chosen my counsel. And for our chalice lighting today, I am asking my dear wife, Maria, to assist me. It's difficult for me to read and light a chalice at the same time. The words for our chalice lighting today have been adapted from a writing of Martin Luther King and are found in your order of service. I guess we're ready to read it in unison. We must develop and maintain the capacity to forgive. He who is devoid of the power to forgive is devoid of the power to love. There is some good in the worst of us and some evil in the best of us. When we understand this, we are better able to forgive our enemies. And now we can turn to hymn number 179, Words That We Hold Tight. That was a toughie. Sasha, thanks for your work on that. I don't remember ever singing that one here. Each Sunday we set aside time in our service to bring our joys and our sorrows into the embrace of the caring community here. We'll begin by sharing our sorrows. If you have something that's been weighing heavily on your heart this week, we invite you to come forward now or just raise your hand and an usher will come to you, and please identify yourself if you wish, as you will. Nope. Okay, no sorrows today that we want to voice. Now, if anyone wishes to share a special joy, please raise your hand or come forward.
Yes, hi. Some of you may remember Vicki Barbash. She was a member for a real long time here. I was fortunate enough to spend an hour with her yesterday. She just turned 98.
Wow.
She has just moved to the Bentley Care Center. Unfortunately, she cannot hear and has lost most of her memory. But cards and notes she loves to read would be really, really good for her, and we happen to have a card out there for you to sign today, so please do so.
Let me just add to that I heard her speak about 4 years ago, about the Holocaust. She was an actual survivor of the Holocaust. Very moving, very moving.
Good morning, everybody. My special joy this morning is the fact that we had 4 successful circle dinners last Friday night. There were 34 people that attended, and I'd like to give a special recognition to the 4 hosts, and that's the loonies in front of me, the lashes over there, and the sacks over there. And I, of course, was a host. You might ask about the balloon. In order to find for people to find my house, which is difficult to find, I put this balloon on the street sign at my corner, so they'd know where to turn. So now, from this, I go to the fact that in the front foyer, there's another pink balloon, because our next circle dinner, it will be August the 15th. And we're looking for all of you to sign up. If we had 34, I'd love to have 68. And when we have plenty of hosts, everybody in this room likes to be a host, right? Well, anyway, that's my story. And John, I'll give you my balloon. Take it. Take it. John, what do you... See?
Not a member yet, but we're very hopeful with his partner Stan. Is there anybody else?
Just wanted to mention that I spoke to Ruth Hare yesterday, and she's leaving tomorrow. No, today, I think, for New York, and she won't be coming back. She says, I'm 87, and she needs to be with her family. Unfortunately, she still has her home up in New York, Finger Lakes region, and so she'll be quite happy up there, she says. We're sorry to see Ruth go. I am.
I'll add another footnote. Kathleen Teach, who just spoke, has been very helpful on Tuesdays with the garden. We certainly welcome any volunteers. It's a big job. It needs many people. Anyone else?
I have the good luck to go and visit Dorothy Dean from time to time. And I couldn't go and see her yesterday. She is having a bit of a tough time. Those of you who know her delightful spirit and her generosity and all the rest, so do drop her a line. She'd love just a chatty card. She just thrives on company. So if you know Dorothy Dean, get in touch.
Anyone else? Thank you.
Thank you. May all these joys and concerns be enfolded in the warmth of this congregation, and may that warmth extend in sympathy and compassion to all who are hurting in the wider world. And now it is time to take up the offering. This house is a house of freedom, built and sustained by the gifts of those who come to receive what they need and give what they can. This house is our house. May it always be worthy of the gifts it receives from you. The morning offering will now be taken. Prior to the offering, I failed to mention that it was split the plate. I had mentioned it a little bit earlier. But nevertheless, even though I slipped up there, it doesn't preclude your going back to the office after the service and putting in more. The organization PFLAG does a great deal for this community. It's parents and friends of gay and lesbian children. And I'm so proud to be a member of a congregation that leads the way in recognition and acceptance of everybody and the diversity here. So, if you're so moved, the office is down the hall afterwards. Now, for meditation, you can close your eyes and think you're in a cemetery in New England. Emily Dickinson is one of my favorite poets, and she has a poem called Forgiveness, and the setting for this is that she's walking through a New England cemetery, a village cemetery. I'm sure most of us have done that at one time. And she's thinking about her life. And this is her poem. My heart was heavy, for its trust had been abused. The kindness answered with foul wrong. So turning gloomily from my fellow men, one summer Sabbath day, I strolled among the green mounds of the village burial place, where pondering how all human love and hate find one sad level, and how soon or late, wronged and wrongdoer, each with meekened face and cold hands folded over a still heart, pass the green threshold of our common grave, whither our footsteps tend, whence none depart. awed by myself and the pitying my race. Our common sorrow, like a mighty wave, swept all my pride away, and trembling I forgave. And one more reading here. I selected a poem about forgiveness by a UU minister, the late Nancy Schaefer, and it's entitled Hauling Out Stones. Once he said an odd thing. Forgiving begins with someone sitting near. Later he said, it isn't for the one who did the hurting. It's the other one who needs it. One day, without warning, he wept. I sat close. He told of an old hurt in half sentences and single words. Like stones, he was coming upon new, like tree limbs broken, which he needed both arms in hauling aside. A half dozen times that summer we sat, he weeping, hauling out stones, gathering limbs, I near. The stones got smaller, his sentences longer. He said, it's the crying part. I couldn't do it by myself. And later he said, I feel cleaned out. A wan smile. And still later he said, I think I've done it. Made a kind of peace, he meant. He slapped his palm hard against mine. He laughed, and he slapped his palm again. And now we will turn to hymn number 323, Break the Circle.
You will only begin to heal when you let go of the past, forgive those who have wronged you, and learn to forgive yourself for your own mistakes. As Bill reminded us earlier, back in 2006, 10 Amish girls were shot in their schoolhouse, 5 of whom died. What was remarkable to me, aside from the usual shock of such a senseless slaughter, was the Amish community's response. On the day of the shooting, a grandfather of one of the murdered Amish girls was heard warning some young relatives not to hate the killer, saying, "We must not think evil of this man." Another Amish father noted, "He had a mother and a wife and a soul, and now he's standing before a just God." Jack Meyer, a member of the Brethren community living near the Amish in Lancaster County, explained, "I don't think there's anybody here that wants to do anything but forgive, and not only reach out to those who have suffered a loss in that way, but to reach out to the family of the man who committed these acts." The killer's family spokesman said as an Amish neighborhood comforted the Roberts family hours after the shooting and extended forgiveness to them. Amish community members visited and comforted Roberts' widow, parents, and parents-in-law. One Amish man held Roberts' sobbing father in his arms, reportedly for as long as an hour, to comfort him. The Amish have also set up a charitable fund for the family of the shooter. About 30 members of the Amish community attended Roberts' funeral. And Marie Roberts, the widow of the killer, was one of the few outsiders invited to the funeral of one of the victims. Marie Roberts wrote an open letter to her Amish neighbors, thanking them for their forgiveness, their grace, and their mercy, and wrote, "Your love for our family has helped to provide the healing we so desperately need. Gifts you've given have touched our hearts in a way no words can describe. Your compassion has reached beyond our family, beyond our community, and is changing the world. And for this, we sincerely thank you." Now, the Amish don't normally accept charity, but due to the extreme nature of the tragedy, donations were accepted. The director of the Anabaptist Foundation said the Amish community, whose religious beliefs prohibit them from having health insurance, will likely use the donations to help pay the medical costs of hospitalized children. Some commentators criticized the quick and complete forgiveness that they received, especially since no remorse on the part of the killer had been expressed, and that such an attitude runs the risk of denying the existence of evil. Donald Craybill and 2 other scholars of the Amish life noted that letting go of grudges is a deeply rooted value in Amish culture, which remembers forgiving martyrs and Jesus himself. They explained that the Amish willingness to forego vengeance does not undo the tragedy or pardon the wrong, but rather constitutes a first step toward a future that is more hopeful. In my own life, I can remember the hatred expressed by the Irish toward the English. Those of you who are history scholars will know that Ireland was occupied by the Danes for 300 or 400 years, defeated by Brian Boru, and then about 1150 or so, the Normans invaded England and took it over. To say nothing of Cromwell, who laid waste to a lot of Ireland. When I was a very young man, just a few years ago, Why are you tittering? I served briefly in the Royal Canadian Air Force, and the Royal Canadian Air Force uniforms were at that time identical to the Royal Air Force uniforms from England. I turned up one day at my grandfather's house in what he termed a British uniform, and it was one of the 2 or 3 saddest days in his life. He was not given to vulgarity or to swearing. His worst opprobrium was contained in the word bum. A bunch of bums, those proddy bastards. Oops, sorry. The deep hatred that is in us, bred into us almost, of long ago wrongs. Now, these examples of the Amish and the British and the Irish are examples that transcend the ordinary matters of life. But our focus should be on a much more personal level and much more emphasis on the forgiving than the forgiven. A little rhetorical question for you. How many of us have chosen to cut off a relation or a relative or a friend because of some event in the distant past, even to the point of not being able to remember what the falling out was about? And if you don't have that in your life, you are a rarity. Just long-standing animosities live on. Let's examine together some of the elements of offense and forgiveness. There is an objective measure of the gravity of an offense. At the top is leaving the toothpaste tube off the tube in the morning. And at the bottom is, sort of capital murder, child molestation, all of the things that I think most of us would agree are wrongs, some far more serious than others. But there is another factor. It is the perception of the person who is wronged. When multiplied by frequency and over many years of, say, living together as husband and wife or partner, it can trigger a much more serious problem. It can become the trigger, the symbol of many other failings in a partnership or a marriage. Think of it this way. The trilling laughter of the beautiful girlfriend when she was 18 can turn into a cross to be borne 30 years later. Or the dashing football captain who scratches his belly idly, beer burps loudly, while watching the second football game of a Sunday. And he is an object of loving disgust. A couple married for 15 years began having more than usual disagreements. They wanted to make their marriage work, and they agreed on an idea that the wife had. For 1 whole month, they planned to drop a slip into a fault box, one for each of them. The boxes would provide a place to let the others know about daily irritations. The wife was diligent in her efforts and approach, leaving the jelly top off the jar, wet towels on the shower floor, dirty socks not in the hamper, and on until the end of the month. After dinner at the end of the month, they exchanged boxes. The husband was given to reflect on what he had done wrong, reading all of these slips. And then the wife opened her box and began reading. They were all the same from her husband. On each slip was, "I love you." The point is that unforgiveness is a cancer. It eats away at us. It eats into our brain, our soul, blighting relationships and souring our everyday lives. It is an unconscious burden that casts shadows over our joy. Worst of all, it provokes revenge, an even more serious consequence. But let's be practical about this. All of us suffer wrongs, offenses from many sources. We shrug off most of them. The unfortunate part is that smaller offenses become magnified the closer the relationship and the frequency of contact. So we need to be on our guard that we don't destroy our most precious relationships. As to the offender, it's important that the sorrow for the offense be real and not just a way of sliding out from under the consequences, or that we are dismissive of what we regard as a minor event. Soon the contrition becomes hollow and will be perceived that way by the person offended. And if the offended person will not forgive, then it is their burden and not yours. Here is a quote from Dr. Izzaldine Abouleish, a physician in the Gaza Strip who lost 3 daughters to bombings in Gaza City. Forgiveness is to move forward, not blindly. You touch it and you engage with it. Forgiveness is to move forward stronger, more determined, to engage with the offender and not be the victim. Joan London says, holding on to anger and resentment and hurt only gives you tense muscles, a headache, a sore jaw from clenching your teeth. Forgiveness gives you back the laughter and the lightness of your life. And that great American modern philosopher, Bill Cosby, says, people can be more forgiven than you can imagine, but you have to forgive yourself. Let go of what is bitter and move on. And John F. Kennedy put an Irish twist to the subject by saying, forgive your enemies always, but remember their names. And to the people here today, I can tell you that it is a great blessing to be with someone who can forgive, and it's much less expensive than alimony. I leave you with an Irish blessing, of course. May you always be blessed with walls for the wind, a roof for the rain, a warm cup of tea by the fire, laughter to cheer you, those who love you near you, and all that your heart may desire. Bless you.
Now we turn to hymn number 331, Life is the Greatest Gift of All.
Again, when I was a very young man, not so long ago, I went to a school that emphasized a lot of memorization, and usually as a punishment. And you had to memorize something in order to get out of the detention. And one of my favorites, although the play is no longer popular, The Merchant of Venice, contains a speech in Act 4 by Portia, and I have always loved it. The quality of mercy is not strained. It droppeth as a gentle rain upon the place beneath. It is twice blessed. It blesseth him that gives and him that takes. 'Tis mightiest in the mightiest. It becomes the throned monarch better than his crown. His scepter shows the force of temporal power, the attribute to awe and majesty, wherein doth sit the dread and fear of kings, but mercy is above the sceptered sway. It is enthroned in the hearts of kings, and it is an attribute to God himself. Bless you all.
Actually, there were no closing words in the program that I wrote, but just as an introduction here, Sasha is going to play a piece called Dedication by Schumann and Liszt. And as I understand it, Robert Schumann wrote this piece of music as a love letter to a woman he admired and loved deeply, and tried to encourage her to marry him, and it succeeded. So Sasha will play Dedication.